So welcome to our session on violence against women. We're very honored to have this amazing panelists of speakers, and we will introduce everyone a little bit later. But before we begin, I'd like to invite our founder, actually, of Peace Women Across the Globe, which originally started as 1,000 Women for the Nobel Peace Prize. We have with us Ruth Gabi Vermont. Gabi, would you just say a few words, please? A few words of welcome.
You're also a co-founder, dear Margo. Dear woman, it is good to see you, and I welcome you warmly in the name of Peace Women Across the Globe. Remember, in 2005, we nominated 1,000 Women for Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. Some of you were already wonderful coordinators, and we shared extraordinary times. We wanted the world to get involved in women's peace work. With the coordinators around the world, we found so many women committed to peaceful coexistence who tirelessly pointed out the devastated climate, who made public the violations of human rights, abuse by politics, exclusion and violence against women, often at great risk to their lives. These women and their daily struggles should be visible. The 1,000 women representing hundreds of thousands did not receive the Nobel Peace Prize. That was sad, but it was like this. But as we can see today, the network continues to exist and has become larger. This network is precious, and we all know that together we can make a big difference. This living network is a very important instrument for change. It is something like the magic wand that we sometimes wish for in difficult times. I wish all a good session. And Margo, you are the hero. You work since 12 hours, yes? Since you are not an amazing moderator. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabi, for your words of welcome. And before we go on, I just also want to say that there's several others of us from PWAG in the room. So Maria Julia, Karen Tanada, who else? Let's see. Of course,
Samar.
yes, Olene Montero, Sima Samar, and I just want to also thank especially KHIN Lao, who without her, it would be impossible to be in this situation, because she's one of the main organizers of the South Forum. And she enabled us to have a whole 2 days just for feminist issues and to have conversations among ourselves. Also, we want to thank everybody at Lingnan University. Hi, Jade, Margaret, she's been with us from the beginning. And of course, Lai Seng. So let us get started. The title of our whole strand of 6 sessions is Feminist Yearning, Imagining, and Organizing for Just Peace and Genuine Security. The current moment with the corona pandemic, combined with global uprisings and state responses to both, not to mention the locust plague and so forth on the continent of Africa, the colonization that's happening, demands us feminists around the world to stand in solidarity. And to do so, we must take the time to think together across regions and other borders in order to understand the current conditions and the political situations, right? And that those situations are shaped by gender, race, ethnicity, class, caste, indigeneity, and sexuality, for example, right? And that by having these spaces, we have the opportunity to understand in much more complex and nuanced ways. Right? We also created this space so that we as feminists can imagine feminist futures that will be able to secure livelihoods for all of us on this planet, to sustain the natural environment and ensure the dignity and well-being of all living beings, not just human beings, right? And finally, we hope that this space will be another way to organize transnationally as feminists. We recognize within that context that neoliberal capitalism, right-wing populism and nationalisms, religious fundamentalism, militarism, colonialism, and imperialism form the foundations. They're the foundations of the world in which we exist, right? And through and from these forces, region-specific forms of male dominance and patriarchy, anti-Blackness and other forms of racism, ethnocentrism, class and caste, heterosexist and transphobia, ecological violence, and other life-destroying and intertwined forces are made manifest. So our workshops, we have 5 themes for our workshops. And one of the themes was, we had 2 sessions, and that was the livelihood theme. This theme this morning relates to violence against women, policy and law reform. The one later today, session 4, will be for people in the global north to think about what it means to be in solidarity as people of the north and as related to countries that have caused or been the root causes of some of the worst devastation. And then we will continue to talk about the current racial dynamics and the race politics that's happening in the US that has inspired and spurred other kinds of formations in various parts of the world. And finally, we will also have a specific session on colonization and occupation. So that's the lineup of our workshops. So now what I would like to do is turn it over to Maria Julia, who will give the overview for this morning's workshop, this afternoon's workshop on violence against women. And then after she finishes just providing the overview for us, then I will come back in as moderator and begin to call on our speakers. So Maria Julia, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. Thank you, Margo, for your work. We are going to start the sessions about violence against women. As Margo said, we are facing a very difficult moment as regards violence against women and girls due to COVID-19, and it's a real tragedy. For these reasons, we called to outstanding speakers who are going to talk about the situation in their countries and in the world. And they are not only outstanding speakers, but also very committed women on the topics they will talk. So I recommend the attendance to enjoy the speech of our family. Thank you.
So here we go. We are ready to begin. Our first speaker today is Valentina SAGALA from Indonesia. Valentina is a human rights activist, advocate, writer, researcher, a lecturer who worked for over 25 years in law, Policy and Human Rights, and founded Institute Perempuan, or the Women Institute, in Bandung, Central Java. She also has been the senior independent expert and advisor for many international and national organizations, legal institutions, government, the UN, and so forth. She has written in national newspaper, has written many books, and her latest book talks about the importance of the state to regulate anti-sexual violence bill in Indonesia. Welcome to our session, Valentina, and I will now turn it over to you. I think you said you wanted to show your screen.
Good evening. Thank you, Margo. Good evening, sisters. Here in Indonesia, we are 8 o'clock at night. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity for me to share some of our struggling here in Indonesia as a feminist activist and human rights activist. And thank you also for PWAG, Gaby and other sister finally meet you here by Zoom. Okay, I will share to you about the struggle to pass the sexual violence eradication bill. I will call it a sexual violence bill. Okay, just wait a moment. Okay. In 2019, there is a report by National Commission on Violence Against Women, who, this is the institution who collect data about violence against women in Indonesia, showed the ever-increasing rate of sexual violence in Indonesia. From 2001 to 2011, at least the National Commission has found 35 women and girls were sexually abused every day. That means in 3 hours, 2 women are actually or experiencing sexual abuse. The report also record a 14% increase in case of violence against women in 2019 for total 178 cases. These are red flags. But compared to that, Indonesia's prevailing laws do not recognize the definition and complexity of sexual violence. There is no law actually defining or give a specific definition and answer the complexity of sexual violence, as also mandated by the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, 1993. For example, in Indonesia, the criminal code only recognizes forcible penile penetration of a woman's vagina as rape. That's all. So doesn't recognize any other forms. And the law does not recognize other forms of sexual violence. We do have a specific law like trafficking and also domestic violence. So I would like to share to you how the struggle is happening in Indonesia. Regarding the legislation process in Indonesia, actually there are 2 institutions who will deliberate the law. One is government from the president's side, and then the second one is the House or Parliament. So the initiation of the sexual bill is coming from the Parliament or the House. The initial planning start in 2017. In Indonesia, the process starts from how to put the bill into the priority list bills. And this is not easy because so many parties in the House or in the Parliament usually has their own interest in specific bill. So sexual violence bill is not too sexy compared to other bill. And especially when it comes to this bill, actually doesn't touch any issues of giving money for the country, but mostly to spend money, like for the services for the victim, etc. In the plenary meeting in 2017, it was decided that the bill would be discussed at the BALEK. BALEK is a part of organization in the House, which consists of so many so many parliament members coming from different background. So it is not specific for law, and it is not specific for women. Many backgrounds are in the ballot, which agreed that the contents of the bill were very important in providing protection to the public against sexual violence. The House in 2017 then sent the bill to the president. It was the president is President Jokowi. Through a presidential letter, the president assigned the Women's Empowerment and Child Protection Minister. So this minister is actually representing the president to then deliberate the bill together with the parliament. But together with the Women's and Empowerment and Child Protection, there are also 5 other ministers: Health, Social Affairs, Administrative and Bureaucratic Reform, Law and Human Rights, and Home Minister. Either individually or as group, they represent the government in the deliberation of the bill. Soon after that, in June 2017, the government submitted a problem inventory list as a counterpart document to the bill for further deliberation. The 2017 problem inventory list from the government was bad. Why? Because it excludes several kinds of sexual violence and try to limit again the definition for like rape. For example, the rape again back to the definition which already regulated in the criminal code, which means penetration between men and women. That's all. Many women's organizations against the problem inventory list from the government side. With strong lobby from several women's organizations, in 2019, so 2 years after the planning process, the government opened some space for women's activists to give input. Therefore, the government came with a new problem inventory list in 2019. So there is a gap in 2017 to 2019. This is not usually in Indonesia when we talk about legislation process. It doesn't need to take too long process like 2 years to discuss any bill. But for the sexual violence bill,
Valentina, excuse me, Valentina.
Yes.
You're speaking too quickly for our interpreters.
Okay.
So can you just please slow it down? Maybe breathe, breathe between paragraphs or something, please.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Margo. And so thank you. So should I start? Can I move to another?
Yes,
screen?
you just move, but going forward,
Okay, thank
please
you.
just slow it down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as explained earlier, it started in 2017 from the initiated by the parliament, and then in Indonesia when the parliament has a bill, and then the president was also drafting like for a comparison so that they both can discuss that together. So this is the process in Indonesia. But then the process is stopped in 2017, not moving anywhere. But then in 2019, the women's organization tried to lobby the government to give some space for the women's organization to talk about so many issues regarding sexual violence. Then finally, the government has the new one of the script that ready to be discussed with the parliament. So after a long pause in August 2019, the deliberation of the bill commenced. At least I remember I was there attending the meetings. There was at least 4 meetings between the government and the parliament or the house. The bill was then transferred from BALEC, the one that I shared to you. It's a part of the body organization which consists of multiply background and multiply dimension, not only like education, health, law, etc., to the Commission 8. Commission 8 in Parliament is special on social and religious issue. So this is very struggling because the Commission 8, they were the member of this commission who will discuss the sexual violence bill are consist of 26 parliament member, and most of them has a very strong religious background. So we can imagine that this sexual violence bill is going to be discussed with people coming from political party as a parliament members, but with the social and religious background. And as we all know, Indonesia is a country with with majority Islamic people, and some of the political party are explicitly mentioned that they are Islamic party. So we can see the struggle coming from that side. And after at least four deliberation meetings between the government and this commission on social religious, and finally it was decided that the bill could not be passed. And the Commission 8 is actually already do some like a study visit about sexual bill violence, and they went to, I remember they went to Canada and France to learn about sexual violence law. But still, during the deliberation meetings in 2019, so many several numbers of parliament members refuse and reject the bill. There is this political party, the Islamic one. Of course, there are also several other Islamic party, but this one is the one who clearly mentioned that the party against the sexual violence bill. It is the Prosperous Justice Party, strongly against the sexual violence bill, arguing that the bill promoted the legalization of adultery and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender sexual orientation. Other members, even though they're not coming from the Prosperous Justice Party, also come with, quote, difficult in everything regarding the bill, such as this bill interfere too much to private life, like husband and wife. And then the academic script also clearly state about feminist theory, telling about what is violence against women, about declaration on the elimination of violence against women. So they think that this is coming not originally from Indonesia. So it's coming from like international or feminist or what's so-called, coming from West country. So these kind of things were raised during the deliberation of the bill, start from in 2019. Unfortunately, while the initiator process of the bill at the BALEC is still not yet clear, the coordination meeting of BALEC with the head of the commission, this is very surprisingly because this just happened last week on June 30, 2020, the Parliament of Indonesia decided to remove the sexual violence eradication bill. So it is dropped from the 2020 priority list. And it will be subject to further discussion on the possibility. So it is not still clear, is the bill going to be discussed next year in 2021 or not? Because it's just the letter only mentioned subject to further discussion on the possibility of listing it on next year's priority list bill. And as I mentioned earlier, we cannot have any deliberation of the bill if the bill is not already put in a priority list. So it has to be in the priority list bill first, and then we can discuss that in the deliberation process. So currently, the majority of women's activists and women and human rights activists are very confused of the situation because legally since June 30, and then following with the meeting 2 days after that, it is clear that the sexual violence bill is already dropped from the priority list. So currently, the target of advocacy from the civil society organization side is to develop this substance team to ensure that we, as a Women Crisis Center, feminist activists, women who work with victims, etc., try to develop an academic paper and the bill as in our side as a civil society. And then we also have a lobby team. Lobby team is the team to try to lobby the parliament member on how to make sure that this bill is going to be in the next year priority bill. What are the problem, and also demanding for the commitment from some of women's parliament member. And then the third is campaign team. Campaign team is try to educate the public, especially about so many issues that raised in 2019, which against the sexual violence bill. The sexual violence bill should at least contain of elements like the one I will share to you. First, definition of sexual violence, because in Indonesia we don't have any definition of it in legal aspect. And then 9 types that will be regulated is sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, contraception coercion, abortion coercion, rape, forced marriage, forced prostitution, sexual slavery, and sexual torture. So it will be 9 types. And then the bill should also contain of prevention, treatment, protection, counseling of victims, punishment for perpetrators, which are framed as a form of state presence in eliminating sexual violence and upholding victims' rights. So these are maybe, thank you so much for Margo, who has tried to ask me about the feminist questions in this struggling moment. So these are my reflection. I think this is the last page of my screen share. It's a one voice, one bill, one movement. Who are we as a women? Who is our enemy and who are our allies? In Indonesia, there's so many entity works for this issue. Women's NGO, Women Crisis Center, Komnas Perempuan is the National Commission supporting the bill, like drafting the bill, also trying to make some lobby with the parliament member and the government side, and also doing some campaign. But we also have other part of social movement, like our colleague working for human rights issues, working at the legal aid, who does not specifically work for women's issues, and they also have some interest in some of the bills. How do we manage dealing with them? And then we also have in the university, of course, we have several women working for like feminist legal theory and some gender studies gender studies center. But there are also some other what the so-called expert who reviews the feminist legal theory and who reviews so many of our dreams in having this bill, and also media. And the most important is religious organizations. Are they part of us, as we are, as some of us also as an activist, also member of a religious organization? And then the other things, which is I found it very interesting, is other women's organization who against the bill. So many, I don't think it is wise to compare the number, how many women's like doing the rally for supporting the bill and how many women's doing the rally against the bill, for example. But the fact is there are other women's organizations against the bill. And most of them, of course, women's organization coming with Islamic fundamentalist issues. So they refuse the bills with so many questions, and they are willing to do also lobby and also a campaign in so many ways. The other question for me is how we can ensure disability groups, indigenous groups, which are also sometimes being left from the discussion and the deliberation of a bill. How, as a women's activist, as a feminist activist, we also try to ensure that they are part of our movement. The other is about the advocacy. What is our goal and what is our strategy? I think this one is also remains as an ongoing process for all of us, especially for me. I can feel it because a reflection is also very important. What are our strengths and what are the chances for us to reach our goal? So for me, developing a feminist advocacy strategy is a big homework. How we can ensure that our advocacy strategy is not it's not only how to reach our goal, but how is the process? Are we also try to ensure that many like poor women who face difficulties in accessing the process of deliberation in the parliament in Jakarta city, for example, which this the feminist strategy is very important. I think that's all.
Our next speaker will be Joenia, who you're just meeting right now, Batista de CARVALHO. She's from Brazil. She is the federal deputy for the state of Roraima in the Amazon region. Brazil belongs to the Wapichana people. In 1997, she was considered the first lawyer to practice law in favor of indigenous peoples. And she was the first indigenous person in the Chamber of Federal Deputies. And she has been on several social control councils, such as the Economic and Social Development Council and the National Biodiversity Council. Thank you very much, Joenia. Please.
Thank you, Margo, for your presentation to myself. I would like to thank you for the invitation. I know the violence against women in Brazil grows every day. Data from the Minister of the Health from 2020 stated then that in Brazil, every 4 minutes, one woman is assaulted by a man. The violence occurs mainly at home, with the unknown aggressors. In this context of the COVID-19 pandemic, military police assistance to women victims of violence increased. In the state of São Paulo, it rose by 44.9%, for example. In one report realized in March of this year, the Brazilian Public Security Forum, FBSP, informed that the total number of the aid provided increased from 6,775 to 9,817 in the comparison between March 2019 and March 2020. The number of the feminicides also rose in the state from 13 to 19 cases, is 46.2%. The United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Women Employment, UN Women, had already called for government offices to plan a specific action for women during the pandemic, taking into account the risk they suffer due to domestic violence. The agenda stressed that the stage women not only face barriers to access essential services or protection orders, but the economic impact of the pandemic can create additional barriers to living a violence pattern. But effective measures have not been put in place in this sense in Brazil. There are some campaigns and the availability of telephone numbers for women to ask for help and for anyone to report if they think a woman is being victimized in the family environment. In Brazil, at the Chamber of the Deputies, in the Brazil, in the Chansley, I'm sorry, I disappear my text. Sorry. Technical problem. There is a service. We have approved a law that deals with the problem women face during the pandemic. It is the number, the law project 1444. In 2018, 15,000 cases of violence against women were recorded, with may be physical, psychological, sexual assault, or a combination of them. And the total number of violence is higher because cases of feminicide are not counted in this index when the victims died. There is also women who don't know reports for fear of the aggressor or ever shame. According to 2019 Atlas of Violence, launched in June 2009 by the Institute for Applied Research in Economics, or IPEA, there was a significant growth of 13.7% in homicides against women in the country between 2007 to 2017. Racial inequality is present, while the homicide rate for no black woman grew by 4.5% between 2007 and 2017. The homicide rate for black women increased by 29%. In absolute number, the difference is even more brutal. Size among no black women, the growth is 1.7%, and among black women, 60%. Considering only the last year available, the homicide rate for the no black woman was 3.2 per 1,000 no black women, whereas among black women, the rate was 5.6 for every 1,000. Women is in this group. So, I would like to share some information about the indigenous community, because I am indigenous woman. So there are also many women and children who are victims of violence. according to a report by the UN Nation published in 2010, women were the main victims of violence against the indigenous peoples and indigenous population in the world, and indigenous women were the most likely to be raped than other women. More than 1 in 3 indigenous women are raped throughout life. The information for the Minister of the Health Information System for Notifiable Disease, SINA, which shows that between 2007 and 2016, 8.221 notification of the case, the violence against indigenous women were registered, the majority between 10 and 19 years old. In the 30 of the case, the aggressor is not a person close to the family. More current studies show, for example, in the São Gabriel da Cachoeira, in the north of Brazil, from January 1st and 2010 and December 31 and 2019, 4,681 occurrences were registered by the municipality police. That is more than 1 case of the violence income. The dependence of the partner, the sexism against of the leadership position, the brutality at the time of the deliveries, the lack of family support, the verbal and the physical attacks, the sexual abuse, excessive drinking, some cultural issues. The statistic is from the Indigenous Women Gender and Violence Project in the Rio Negro, carried out by the Rio Negro Department of the Indigenous Women of the Federation of the Indigenous Organization of the Rio Negro, FOIRN, in the partnership with the Observatory of the Gender Violence in Amazonas, or VEGAM, from the Federal University of Amazonas, UFAM, with the Social Environmental Institute, ISA, and with the Faculty of Public Health and the University of São Paulo, USP. There is also a great number of violence against Guarani and Kaiowá women in Mato Grosso do Sul, whose process of the confinement of indigenous territories of the small extension does not include the organization models of communities, expanding and intensifying political, social, religious, economic, and gender. At the same time, women have been fighting and influencing the public service in the past 3 decades. There have been important achievements expressed in institutional changes that are reflected in public policies. For example, in 1985, the moment of the creation of the first women's police station. 1997, the appeal of a special criminal courts. 2006, the enactment of law 11,034, known as Maria da Penha law. 2015, the enactment of the law 13,104, which amends of the penal code to provide for feminicide as qualifying circumstance of the crime, the homicide. And the Article 1st of the law the law 8072 of the July the 25 to include feminicide in the list of the heinous crimes. In reality, there are still few studies on violence against indigenous women and children in Brazil, and this use needs to be better addressed by government and the civil society. As a federal deputy, I indicate Richard recurs from the public budget, so the service and the activities that contribute to knowing the reality in my state of Roraima can be better. Also, I am a member of the Women Secretariat of the Chamber of Deputies, where is discuss and take action to defend on women's rights. I know we have a serious challenges, and this time, especially we have the crisis because we decided the pandemic time. The more the women suffer more domestic violence in the home. We try to prove a specific law in National Congress to give more protection for the women and for indigenous peoples, especially for indigenous women, suffer because have a lot of impact in this territory, like the invasions, minors activities, and lack the specific policy to protect the indigenous, or they lack the action to combat this kind of violence against indigenous. So this is kind of the challenge for me, because I am the only indigenous woman in National Congress in Brazil, and I am the only in my party in National Congress have JUSIC 15%, and now the Brazil have 13 deputies. It is in total. You can see 15%. You have more to encourage more women to be part of the National Congress, to give more influence, importance, and to take the space in different instances to be more powerful and to develop a specific action. So this is my contribution. I would like to thanks. I'm sorry, I just have a few time to present this. I have a lot of number, but a long time I see kids is very important thematic for us, but you need to share more information in the world about Brazil, about the women, indigenous women, especially this. Thank you for giving this space to show about the indigenous youth.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joenia. That was very, very powerful. And, you know, as the audience people we've been hearing, you know, one of the problems is violence against women is always about power, of male power over women. And that's absolutely important. And both of our speakers have spoken about that. But the other kind of power also is the power of the state, in which sometimes they're helpful, many times they're not, right? And the third kind of power is the influence of the religious parties. And I think it's important here, though, to say that not to conflate religion and religion with violence, right? We conflate them, but if you think about cultures existed before formal religions existed. And so think about the ways in which religion is used to justify violence. So it's very important that that we see the connection, right? And then, as both people have spoken, the question I was thinking about is, what should we as feminists, right? How should we think about our relationship to the state, when often the state is part of the problem, and sometimes the state can help at least address the problem. So it's a tricky situation, and we'll see what, and also one more thing, the ways in which, in this case, indigeneity, being an indigenous person, also has implications about power, and being a Black person, in the case of Brazil. And in every country, there's a marginalized group who doesn't have the kind of power that's needed to create the certain kinds of changes. So thank you both for bringing up these very central issues in the first half of this presentation. We will now turn to Marcela Pastore. Marcela, with an extensive experience and expertise on addressing and teaching about gender-based violence in Latin America, is president of FUDESO, Fundación de Defensa Social de La Plata, Foundation of Social Defense of La Plata. She was an advisor on gender issues at the lower house of Buenos Aires province, and was director of the program against human trafficking, Ministry of Justice of the province of Buenos Aires, Argentina, from 2013 to 2016. She has received lots of international recognition and numerous awards for her work. Welcome, Marcela.
Right?
Yeah,
Sí,
good.
se habían apagado. Ok.
Okay.
Les decía que, thank you. Les decía que no otras violencias menos importantes, ¿no? Como las laborales,
There
las
are
institucionales,
violence against
las
people
violencias contra las niños,
work,
niñas, niñes, y
children,
otras tan lamentables como la extrema, la
and
trata y
regrettably
los
trafficking
femicidios.
in people and femicides in
Bueno,
Argentina.
digo trataré porque en estos poquitos minutos es imposible contar tanta crueldad, tanto dolor, como
So
escuchábamos
much
de los países
cruelty
anteriores,
is
complejidad y resumir,
difficult to
pero sí algunos
summarize in
logros
so
en derechos
few minutes.
humanos y en especial de las mujeres, y que nos falta tanto conquistar.
Human rights in
Todo
Argentina have to
aquí fue
be
posible
dealt with, yes.
por las luchas
We are
tenaces
fighting
e incesantes de las que ya nos antecedieron y de nuestras contemporáneas en sus acciones colectivas, en nuestras acciones colectivas, uniendo nuestras fuerzas.
We have been fighting against this kind of violence,
Voy muy rápido.
all sorts of violence, and we have been
Manifestando y peticionando
for
reclamos
many years
se fueron
petitioning
consiguiendo.
claims, and there have been some successful attempts.
Puedo contarles algunos relevamientos. Estadísticas
Some statistics
que organismos estatales y no
that
gubernamentales colectaron.
governments and non-governmental organizations
Puedo
have
decirles
collected.
que en el año anterior, en 2019, un poco más de
2019,
300 mujeres fueron
300
asesinadas
women
por
were
varones.
killed by men.
Ocurrieron así estos femicidios.
These are the femicides.
En general, la mayor cantidad fueron en sus domicilios,
The vast
y como
majority
también
were
contaban las
committed at
compañeras
home.
anteriores, siempre hay un subregistro,
Some of
casos
them had not been
invisibilizados.
reported. They are invisible reports.
Pero bueno, estos números, estas estadísticas,
But these numbers
nos sirven para justamente
useful
revisar las políticas
to
públicas,
revise, to check the policies,
ajustar herramientas de
make
abordaje, de
judgments,
tratamiento,
yes.
elaborar leyes,
Treatment of the laws, to pass bills,
mejorar las capacidades de las y los operadores que
to
imparten la
improve
justicia
the
y de los
telephone
servidores
operators
y de las
yes,
servidoras públicas
and
de
the
las
people who
organizaciones,
work for
con esta mirada de
organizations
género que pretendemos que
with this
transversalicen
view
todas las políticas.
towards gender
Ahí los tenemos, ahí los
non-violent
usamos.
actions. They are
Pueden ser números
used,
fríos, pero así se estima
it is
que en este
estimated
país
that in
una
Argentina,
mujer es muerta cada 29 horas. Es
a woman is
asesinada por
killed
el solo
every
hecho de ser
29
mujer.
hours,
Y hay cuerpos feminizados,
only by the simple
personas
reason
trans,
for being a
travestis.
woman. Transvestites, yes.
¿Vamos bien?
Lesbians, yes. Yes.
Los números nos dicen también que una de cada 6 mujeres no habían hecho la denuncia.
6 women have not
Como les decía, el
reported
asesinato
violence.
había
The
sido
murder
producido en su propio hogar
has been done
y
at home,
por quien lo perpetuó su pareja o su expareja,
and it has been done by his
que
partner
tenían entre
or
19 y
ex-partner,
45 años de edad
19 and
que
between
además
40 years old,
dejaron aproximadamente 770 niños, niñas, niñas huérfanos.
and they have left approximately 700 children alone.
Y si la justicia lo condenó, como es de
And
esperar,
if justice
también sin
has
padre,
done
porque
something,
debería estar en la cárcel.
that person should be in jail.
Para ellas continúan nuestras luchas, los recordatorios,
For those
más
women
allá
who
de este
have been
mero número,
killed, we are doing claims.
porque no queremos ni una mujer
We don't
menos,
want anybody
ni una mujer
else
muerta
being
más.
killed.
Por eso
No
decimos
more
en estos
women
encuentros
killed.
internacionales, ni una menos
Ni una
entre
menos
nosotras,
means not one more
Todas,
woman killed.
todes aquí.
Here now.
Pero también nos encargamos de revisar y mejorar las políticas públicas.
So we are now checking
Este año
the
estamos estrenando,
policies. Yes, we
estamos
are
celebrando
inaugurating, celebrating,
el
commemorating
Ministerio Nacional de las Mujeres, Géneros y Diversidad en mi país.
we are inaugurating
El homólogo en mi
ministry
provincia, en
for
Buenos
women
Aires,
in the province
donde
of
yo
Buenos
vivo y
Aires,
trabajo.
where she works and lives.
Provincia que además, provincia de Buenos Aires, se contaron la mayor cantidad de femicidios. También seguido
Buenos Aires is the province which has reported the most cases of violence,
seguido por otras provincias
followed by other provinces
como Santa Fe
like Santa Fe
y otras provincias del sur.
and other provinces in the south of Argentina.
Pero la meta no se abandona
But the
y
aim
así
is never
vamos a
enough.
erradicar estas violencias.
We want to eradicate
Utopías.
all types of violence. Yes.
Un párrafo quiero dedicar a esta particular situación que muchos de nuestros países estamos atravesando en estos meses.
She would like to share a paragraph about the situation that is currently affecting Argentina. Yes.
La pandemia por el COVID-19,
The pandemic for the COVID-19,
la indicación del confinamiento para cuidarnos en nuestros hogares,
yes, the confinement that we are going through in Argentina,
y esta situación que muchas mujeres estarán soportando
and many women are living
con el agresor ahí,
with the aggressor
cercano a
at
ella
home,
y a sus
near
niños.
her, yeah, and her children.
Quizás compartimos similitudes en situaciones, en casos,
Maybe we share the same
en logros,
crimes and things that
en
they have
deudas.
been mentioning and things that we need to
Pero
do.
aquí también celebramos estos encuentros donde podré dejarle estas experiencias
And, but here we are showing what the situation is in Argentina and our
llevarme
experiences,
este aprendizaje de
and
sus países
we are taking this learning from you, from your countries. Yes.
y como les decía, en Argentina ya se cuenta con varios instrumentos legales.
In Argentina there are many policies that are
Programas
directing
de las
their
políticas
attention.
públicas del Estado
Political policies yes, by the
y con
state,
la cooperación de la sociedad civil, de las organizaciones de la sociedad civil
and people who are working,
que actúan en el territorio, allí cerca donde ocurren las situaciones.
who work near the people and take action in order to prevent all these types of violence.
Nos juntamos para paliar, mitigar
We get
asistir
together to
los casos que se
support,
presentan.
help all the
También,
people
claro,
who are in danger of
sensibilizar
violence,
y prevenir.
and make awareness programs and to prevent people from suffering this type of
Bueno, tenemos que
violence.
celebrar en Argentina la Ley Nacional de Protección Integral
We are
para prevenir,
celebrating in
sancionar
Argentina
y
a
erradicar las
law,
violencias de género,
a bill that eradicates the
la
gender
ley del matrimonio
crimes,
igualitario,
equalitarian
la ley de identidad
law,
de género,
the gender
la última
law,
ley, la ley Micaela,
and the
que
Micaela
habla
law that is
induce
about
a que todos los funcionarios y las funcionarias públicas debamos tener mirada de género y aplicarlos en los programas y proyectos de nuestras acciones en el Estado.
and a law that has been passed in order for all the politicians to have training experience in political gender perspective that we are celebrating in Argentina.
La reparación económica para niños y niñas que han quedado huérfanos.
And one more thing we are doing is compensation for the children who have been left alone. Economical.
Dado que quedan a cargo de otros mayores, quizás abuelos, tíos.
Because they have been left
mayores.
alone in the care of their parents, grandparents, or adult brothers and sisters.
La línea telefónica 144, una línea nacional que atiende las 24 horas.
One more celebration is the telephone line.
Las comisarías de la mujer.
To report cases, yes.
Las oficinas
and
de género
police,
en los municipios.
Offices for women, yes, to report.
Las ONGs.
ONGs which are working, yes.
Y la ardua tarea que tenemos o nos comprometemos todos y todas a deconstruir en estos malos hábitos y pensamientos y actos nocivos machistas.
Okay, and all the women who are working towards non-violence against the macho stereotypes.
Tarea de las mujeres también, de profundizar la sororidad.
Many women are working towards being listened to and be
hablando
heard
de la solidaridad y de la empatía entre mujeres.
Solidarity and empathy towards women.
Tarea de varones.
And men also working
y construir estas nuevas masculinidades.
Deconstructing and constructing new masculinities.
Derribar mitos, creencias que sostienen muchas veces el machismo.
And we are trying to
invitar a los
promote
varones
new
a cooperar
forms
con
of
este feminismo,
men, to promote new
deconstruyéndose
kind
y
of
contagiando a sus
feminism,
congéneres.
and
las
trying
charlas,
to
en los
make
chistes,
them aware,
en las actitudes, en la
make them
cooperación
aware
en el hogar.
At home, to help the children, to make a different perspective for women in men, okay?
Bueno, aquí les dejo un pantallazo, un paisaje. Les vuelvo a
Here
agradecer
is the
por darnos
landscape.
lugar
She's
a la Fundación
thanking us
Fudeso para contarles esto que sucede en Argentina. Doloroso. Muchas gracias.
It's
Thank you
hurting,
very much.
but she's thanking us. Thank you very much.
KHIN Ohmar is chairperson of Progressive Voice, a Burmese democracy activist noted for her leadership in the 8888 uprising and her work with the Women's League of Burma and the Burma Partnership. Ohmar, very welcome to our session, and thank you for recognizing the situation of the Rohingya people in your country. So please, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Margo. And thanks to Ruth, Karen, and all the sisters for sharing this. I don't even know where to start after listening to. And thank you so much. I mean, you really, like everything what you have just said, have brought a lot of my memories. Also meeting with meeting with a lot of the rape survivors, like the sexual violence, the survivors of the sexual violence by the Myanmar military. So just if I can just give a little very brief background of where I am at the moment. I was, I mean, like Margo kindly introduced, I was involved in the organizing of this well-known 8888 nationwide pro-democracy uprising in Burma, or Myanmar, as many people know today. So yes, I was part of the organizing of the nationwide pro-democracy uprising in my country back in 1988. So that's already more than 30 years now. I called for democracy and human rights that time as a student, but when the military imposed the violent crackdown on us, I happened to be one of the young students who had to flee the country across into the jungle areas where there are many ethnic revolutionary armies control the areas. My thinking on the women's rights started in that moment when I got into the jungle. Most were men, very few young women, and I was in a leading position back during the uprising. But then when I got into the jungle area where it seems to be more of a man place, I then realized that the space for women in such like a armed revolution, or like more of that politics, is very small. And that led me to come to reflect and keep learning, keep reflecting and keep learning, which led me to the actions that I've taken along my activist life for more than 30 years. So to make it very quick of that long 30-year stories, I just want to say that along that road I took, along the path, I really dedicated a lot of my energy and my focus together with my ethnic sisters, women from different ethnic backgrounds from Burma, Myanmar. And that's where I co-founded, along together with these sisters, the Women's League of Burma, which is an umbrella. And throughout those years, I developed the Women Peace Building Program, where I experience and work together with the women from different ethnic communities, particularly from the conflict-affected areas. Many of them have gone through different types and levels of degrees of violence within their individual or within their families and communities. So for me, coming from a majority Buddhist Burma community, even though my family is underprivileged, but that's where I come to really start to see these layers of gender discrimination, discrimination against women, violence against women in different layers. Because being a majority of this country and also belonging to the majority religion, even though I am underprivileged, I am already privileged in many ways, which made me feel guilty on one side, but also gave me a strength to continue with my work. I know what I want to do and where I really want to serve. So together with these ethnic women in the Women's League of Burma, we have done many work. We've done like peace building trainings, bringing not only to the women in the refugees and conflict affected internally displaced communities, but also women, not only the women, but also to the men and young women, young men, and also to the children. This is where I'm talking about the Thailand border with Burma, Myanmar. I've been based on the Thailand border for ages. And we were able to do a lot of these things, including also documenting the rape and sexual violence committed particularly by the Myanmar military, because they are the main perpetrator. We're not excluding the situation or the cases of the rape and sexual violence, individual cases where the women also experience within their own communities as well. But we really look into, as a Women's League of Burma, from our thinking as a feminist approach, is we really need to dig deep to the root and see how we really change this root, which is the system that is so entrenched and internalized and predominated by the Myanmar military with this military doctrine. So that is the base of my activism. Just to again move it to fast forward to a few more years, in 2010, the Myanmar military held election just to transfer their power from the military green uniforms to the civilian uniforms. Yeah. Then they opened the country to the world and also invited those of us who were always been trying to end this military impunity or trying to change this military dictator to democracy. They welcome us to come back to the country, including myself. We were removed from the blacklist that we were on the list for all of these like 20 plus years. And I went back because I know that there is no guarantee of my security, but I know the change is within the country, within the society. That's where I'm being working for, from outside the country to push for the change within the country. So I don't want to miss the chance. So I went back in, but I didn't have much time. I had only about a little more than 2 years back in Myanmar to do the work that I'm doing. The very reason that is because I kept calling for the structural change, system change, and also to hold the Myanmar military to account. Because even though the country opened up, they are not backing out of their military offensives against the ethnic minorities, in which these military operations and campaigns, when they terrorize the entire ethnic minority populations, such as the Rohingya. There are many others like the KHIN in the north or Karen in the east, along with the Thailand border. I also see that they don't back down of these generations-long practice and impunity that they enjoy is raping the ethnic minority women. I come to learn about the military rape against the ethnic minority women only when I was 18 years old. That's a long time ago now. In 2012, even the country opened up, I was still meeting the survivors of the military rape. So I know this is where I just have to keep pushing the envelope, keep trying. So I push for the, after there is another big incident, really horrible, rape and torture and killing of 2 young KHIN women in the north. I call for the accountability. then that was the end of the story for me to be in the country, because the compromise from the military, so-called civilian government was, you keep your mouth shut, don't talk about these things anymore, don't go to the UN or to the world, don't talk to the media about these things, then you will have access or you can stay in the country. And that is the compromise, which they offered to me, the incentive. I couldn't take it. So I called for the accountability after these two young KHIN women were raped and killed brutally. Then basically I was almost detained and I had to be re-exiled again ever since in 2015. So now about 5 years, I'm outside the country again. But I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up because they're not stopping. They're not stopping. So, but it is really sad that if I can share with you all is in the Women's League of Burma, like throughout the time that we've been working together, to end this military impunity and rape against the women, particularly the ethnic and religious minority women, is the main. But it's really heartbreaking for me when this is the system, yeah, this is the system. Myanmar, Burma, a country, the system is built by this military regime. When we are all back under the system, our voices being suppressed even further. When we were outside the country, we were calling on the whole world and exposing the military impunity. But back in the country, there are so many repression, including the surveillance, intimidation, and threat to our personal security come. Many of my sisters, I think they have to also think more than double and triple about how they're going to continue. And I think that's where my hope and my aspiration and my hope for the women movement, like feminist movement, which I was hoping that we will bring it back into the country, that I come to see started to be weakened under that military structure, policy and law and system that we have to operate within. It was really sad for me because I am out of the country and I'm not under the system anymore. And I continue to see that system further silence and suppress our sisters, our women movement. So I don't see at this point that, for example, like there is a new law, a draft law now just being submitted to Parliament to debate after 7 years of drafting, which is like to prevent the women from the violence. So like the prevention of violence against women law. It's really sad is because that law took about 7 years to draft without consulting to the women, particularly the women from the ethnic and conflict-related communities were out of that. But also the law is a major problem, which I am already communicating to many of my sisters from outside the country, even in the last few days and past week. The law is at the Parliament to debate, but the law from the draft that was proposed by some of the women organizations who were allowed to be a part of the quote-unquote consultation, the draft law excluding already to address the military impunity or the violence committed by or involved by the security forces, yeah? So to me, this is a problematic law. But I just want to share with another two key laws that are quite problematic. Well, actually, I would say just one law. So one law, and after Myanmar opened up to the world, the law, there's a four sets of law in one law called Race and Religion Protection Law. What kind of race and what kind of religion are we talking about here? It is a race, the majority Burma, that is what they are talking about. And religion, it is the Buddhism, that's what they are talking about. So it is about protecting the Burma majority and the Buddhist religion. We are very multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religion. So this is a huge problem as the country open up to the world think Myanmar democracy transition is so smooth and velvet. But then you all see that in 2017, next month, there will be 3 years of the genocide against the Rohingya. In 2018, after about 6 months of the genocide, I traveled along with the Nobel Peace Women to the Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh refugee camps. Hearing from Anna, I was seeing all of the faces of these Rohingya sisters who had to suffer this rape by the Myanmar military. And I know the children are there now in the camp. And there are stories coming up that like some children are already sold. I don't know what is happening to these children, to be honest. I have no idea. Because after that first trip, I don't have access. I cannot go back to the border anymore. But what is really, after that genocide against the Rohingya, what breaks my heart again of the aspiration that I've been working for and believed in is the Rohingya are taken by the larger population in Myanmar, by all ethnics, as foreigners who illegally enter the country, who are the Bangladesh people, or they call Bengali. They don't belong to Burma. They are not from Burma. And they came illegally and they need to be kicked out. So the Myanmar military's genocide campaign against the Rohingya were largely agreed or supported and applauded by the larger population in the country. That really broke my heart. Also, this very leader, the Nobel Women Laureate, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, whom I campaigned all my life for her freedom while she was under house arrest. She used to speak for the ethnic minority women who were raped by the military during her time under house arrest. But now, she kept not only total silent in many ways of her public engagement or public communication, not only ignoring, sometimes it's sort of like agreeing to it. So that is a major challenge that we are seeing in Burma, Myanmar. So it's I would just say that, you know, like the total denial used to be only the Myanmar military regime in the past. But now, joined by the civilian government led by Aung San Suu Kyi and herself. Because if you notice it, Myanmar was brought to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, last December. Aung San Suu Kyi herself led Myanmar government delegation and defended Myanmar and ignored entirely the sexual violence against the Rohingya women. And Myanmar submitted a report to the CEDAW committee last year. In the report, the report claimed the rape allegations as wild claims. Yeah. So to me, how do we actually address these problems within Myanmar when the feminist movement, if there were a one or about to have a one, or at least the women rights organizations, their voice and their place are further suppressed and also being divided by the ethnic issue or the religious issue, such as like Islam community is largely discriminated by pretty much a larger population or the large society in Myanmar. Whereas Rohingya in particular, who vast majority are Islam faith, are even further discriminated. So to me, this is where I see the domestic accountability to hold the perpetrators and those who complicit. There is no space in the country. There is no mechanism feasible. So what I would just go on to my last section of my sharing with you all is, this is what I'm doing. For the past 5 years, being back living in exile, sort of isolated to some extent, I would say, but I'm not really isolated because I am, thanks to all the social media, I'm connected to many of the frontline human rights defenders and activists, young women, and also both men, who are calling for the accountability like myself. So I've been able to work with the like-minded, principled social justice change agents and activists. So I've been really targeting the international criminal accountability mechanisms, such as like supporting the International Court of Justice, or try to get the Human Rights Council to really act, and you know, our advocacy reach far. So now, not only that we had past 2 years in independent fact-finding mission, but also now we have another accountability mechanism that is already investigating and preserving the evidence of those international crimes and mass atrocities that will be used, ready to be used for any of the criminal court procedures or criminal accountability processes that will happen or that might happen in the coming time. I'm hoping to be real soon. And I'm really bringing the local people's voices, myself, and also my organization, Progressive Voice. We create the space for our local partners, particularly from the war-affected, marginalized, and disenfranchised ethnic and religious minority communities, to be able to speak up for themselves, to be able to share their experiences and call for the change, the solutions that they see is going to protect them and their family, and that they can live in peace. And I think this is where I am at the moment. And I think I'll just end it here, and I look forward to our exchange and more discussion. Thank you so much, Margo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ohmar. Wow. So again, let's just take a few moments just to reflect, and please, in your notebook or wherever, just write down your thoughts and pay attention to your body. So this is the end of the first part of the presentations, and I just want to say that we have with us one of our PWAG folks who is familiar with, and that's saying the least, with the Rwanda situation, the war in Rwanda, very similar to things that have been described. And because of the War Crime Tribunal in 1998 and the war in Bosnia later, the war in Bosnia, the war in Rwanda, which were happening around the similar time, right? The one good thing that's come out of that, you know, of course, is rape during wartime considered a crime against humanity. So that's one very good thing that that's come out of it. And as I was listening to everybody, I was thinking about this whole concept of minority. And perhaps it's better to think about the ways in which dominant cultures and dominant religions, with the help of the state or led by the state, are minoritized. They're made into minorities. They're made smaller. There's nothing small about them, but they are rendered small, you know. And so thinking about changing the word from minority to a kind of a verb in English that says it's a process that happens where people are pushed to the edge and devalued. And that goes with Ajna's point about recognition, right? And how recognition is certainly a part of it. I'm also thinking about militarized violence and the state militaries, but also the ways in which military values are brought right into the home, into the society, into the streets. So the people who are committing these crimes don't necessarily have to wear a uniform, right? Official state uniform, but they're still operating out of militarized values and militarized ways of dealing with problems. It's, I think, very, very important. And thinking about perpetrators, right? How can one, on the one hand, be a victim, then turn out to become a perpetrator? Here I'm thinking about Aung San Suu Kyi, for example, at one point persecuted. I'm thinking also about the Israelis who suffered, under the hands of the Nazis, who are now wreaking havoc for the Palestinian people, right? And so it raises all kinds of questions about what it means to be human when both kinds of things can happen. So I will, and then finally, this whole question of citizenship, right? And I don't mean just passports and official citizenship, but the ways in which in a country or in a location, who are considered to belong. And in some ways, women as a category never fully belong, right? And I'm thinking about the example when Anna talked about the armies, the peacekeepers, and humanitarian aid workers all perpetrating this war crime or this acts of violence, right? So it's irrespective of whatever category that exists. Anyway, enough of my commentary here. Let's move on. I think we have a couple of additional speakers, and then we have some questions from the floor. And I also want to throw in here other minoritized people like transgender people, a newly emerging identity group in various parts of the world. So I want to honor that, those people as well. Then I believe, Karen, you were going to say something in response, and there may be other people from PWAG, so please don't be shy. Those who were on the program, speak first, please. And again, please remember to speak slowly and clearly so our interpreters are not suffering. So who's going first? Vera.
Okay, I'm Vivera Vieira from Brazil. Thank you very much for this section. I just loved all the speaker and the contribution that they gave to us. I would like to add some information about Brazil's situation. As you know, we have a government of extremely right ideology. So women's achievement have been set back. No? In Brazil, domestic violence increased 30% during the confinement. As you know, we have almost 2 million cases of COVID and 73,000 deaths until now in Brazil. So the situation is very hard in Brazil. And in São Paulo and the Rio de Janeiro state recorded an increasing of 50%. The confinement has also shown the reality of sexual division of labor. More than ever, women are responsible for the triple journey: home office, housework, helping children with e-learning, and taking care of elderly people. And as women live with the aggressor for 24 hours, there is difficulties in reporting violence. In Brazil, a women's police station and the general police started to register online cases. And there is also a helpline 180 attending 24/7. Shelters during the pandemic have registered a demand 3 times higher, no? And it's important to emphasize that Brazil has almost 6,000 municipalities, and only 3% of this municipality have a shelter, no? If the public policies for the care of women in situation of violence was already tragic, it has now become much worse. But, you know, women continue to resist in Brazil, women movement, women feminists, and the damage caused by this government will be difficult to repair. But feminists and so many Brazilian women resist and continue to fight for a peaceful and equitable society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those added comments, Vera. Maria Julia, and then we'll turn to Cecile. Maria Julia, please.
Hello, could you hear me now?
It's better, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for all the panelists. We have time to learn from them, and for the very touching testimony of Anja. All my love, Anja from Argentina. I also would like to share with you the situation of Latin America and the Caribbean. We are in the most unequal region in the world, as the Organization of the States said. In Colombia, for instance, the complaints about domestic violence during the lockdown increased by, listen to me, 175% if we compare this period with the same period in 2019. In Mexico, the helpline numbers as regard domestic violence increased 60% during the first weeks of the confinement. In the Dominican Republic, the Ministry of Human Affairs received 619 calls in the 25 first day of the confinement. And I want to share 2 testimonies of two girls. Miriam from Guatemala said, I really worried about violence against girls and women. Home has become an insecure place for us, the girls. And Betsabe from Peru said, everyone talks about the COVID-19, but few people talk about violence against women. A pleasure for the government. It's extremely important that the government recognize that additional efforts need to be undertaken to protect women and girls from gender-based violence and sexual assault. I repeat, we are in the most unequal region in the world, and we need a long way to go. Thank you very much. Thank you, as always, Peace Women across the globe. It's a privilege to be part of this group. All my love.
Thank you for expanding our perspective to include the bigger, section that we call the Caribbean and Latin America. And as you said, the most unequal region of the world within its people. Cecile, can you just talk to us for a few minutes about the situation in Rwanda and give us kind of an update of what's happening there?
Thank you very much, everyone, for this very inspiring and sharing moment. I don't think I didn't know I was supposed to speak. I thought I was going to participate, to attend, so that I don't have a prepared presentation with figures.
No, I'm just calling on you, Cecile, given
Yes.
that we were talking about rape during war.
Yes.
You were not supposed to speak. I'm just putting you on the spot.
Exactly, Margo. Thank you very much. Exactly, I want to speak about that. With regard to the violence against women in Rwanda, I can say that the government, because I'm sure because of what happened during the genocide, the government has made tremendous effort to protect and to support women, including the medical assistance, including counseling, access to justice. I can say from that perspective that a lot of effort have been made. But I'm glad you asked me to say a word about the rape during the genocide, and more importantly, the children born out of the rape during that time. It's very critical. I was very much touched, and if I have sent a chart wondering if our organization, women across the globe, peace women across the globe, if we can do something, whatever small it is, about those children. No recognition, they are a shame, they are not accepted by the family of the mother, they don't know the family of the father, they are just, I can say that completely lost and discriminated. And I think it would be really good if we can think of doing something about it. That's what I can say. Thank you very much.
And I'm happy to hear you tell us that the government, the state, is taking quite a bit of responsibility, and perhaps that has to do with Rwanda having one of the most equal parliamentary representation of women and men. Is that not true?
Yes, Margo, it is very true. Not only having such a high number and equality women in the national institutions, including the parliamentarian, but also having women in the private sector in everywhere. Currently, there is an office, gender monitoring office, that is setting standards. And the violence, fighting violence against women is one of the standards that the different institutions, private and public, have to be assessed against. And I was happy that I was working on those standards. I think this is something maybe I could volunteer to write a bit of that experience to be shared with you colleagues.
Okay,
thank you.
Great,
Margo.
thank you. So, we also have other people, who are present who've experiencing similar kinds of things. So let's open. Everybody, you can open your mics. You can unmute yourself, and if you have comment or if you have a reaction, you can please raise your hand in the participants. There's a section where you can raise your hand. And I'm happy to call on you. Please let me remind you that probably many people here have comments and observations. So keep your comments very short so we can share the space with everyone who's here. And then we'll go to the last section. So does anybody want to make a comment?
I would just like to thank you. It was a great opportunity, and I would like to join Cecile with the suggestion. I think it's very important to do something for those children like Ajna, and I think she has not even the opportunity to explain, but so many years she was not aware of the situation as so many other children. The mothers are silent. They do not talk about the experiences and the crimes they experienced. And Ajna just learned the truth through an incident, and it was very traumatic. So perhaps if we can share her story through the world, it will help other children and mothers to speak to their children and to raise their voices. So I think it's very important to start from there and to bring those stories in the public eye.
Yes, thank you very much. And not just in Bosnia-Herzegovina,
Yes.
but also in other war-torn places, the
Absolutely.
Rohingya
Absolutely.
people. Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you for that wonderful reminder of something possible that, that we can do. Other comments and observations, please. Reactions. If you can't unmute yourself, maybe you can just write a question in the comment box or the chat box. And also for the Chinese interpreters, if there are any people for whom you are interpreting and would like to speak, please call on them, and let's try to invite everyone into this conversation.
Margo, can I speak?
Yes?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a brief comment. When we hear all those stories about violence against women, it has been on and on and on for years and everywhere. Don't we think that maybe, I know it has very much to do with the patriarchy, very much so. Don't we think that maybe we really need to understand why is still rampant, increasing, despite all the advocacy or the programs, and what can be done better and differently? No, it's so emotional when you all the time it's the same thing. It's not changing. You know, we keep talking, we keep crying, we keep raising voices, but nothing is changing. Maybe
yeah,
yes.
Cecile, but I just want to say that when you say nothing has changed, I think that's not true. Some things have changed. We need to really give credit for what has changed and what has not, right? Otherwise, we're doing a disservice to the movements that have worked very hard to, you know, create certain kinds of changes, right? So even if you look only at the Me Too movement, they would not be possible if all the two generations of women before them had said violence against women is a problem. And I think we really need to understand that right now, historically, it's a both and movement, right? Certain things fundamentally have not changed, and some things have. There's a certain kind of consciousness that we've developed, but we're still also needing to develop other ways to understand, as you're suggesting, have a more complex understanding of what's happening around violence against women and other issues. So let's not disrespect our genealogy, right? But say that we've reached this turning point, right? Where we're facing deep contradictions, and how do we assess that, and what do we do about it? That's how I am thinking about it. Otherwise, we might as well just give up and say nothing's going to change. Nothing has changed. So my sister Cecile, you know, just with a lot of love, just let's say, and you're among one of the leaders, you know, of this movement. So I want to honor your work as well as all the activists who have brought us to this point. And change isn't linear. It's not a straight line. Yeah. Are there other?
Can I also, Margo?
Yes, please.
Hi. Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to follow up on what you just shared. I also want to say, like, while acknowledging the challenges continue and remain to be immense, I think we are, as individual level also, I think what we make difference makes difference. Particularly, I want to say, for example, just again, coming back to our organization, the Women's League of Burma, for example, because we are from the different ethnic communities, right? And then when the situation for the Rohingya women, we have a different opinions among us. That was such a struggle, and those with a more power leverage, like depending on, you know, like individual and organizations, resources, and etc. No, there are different level of power dynamics even within among us. But then what I found myself is there was a moment I had to think, do I give in myself to these sisters who I love them so much that I thought we are on the same boat together? We were, you know, like facing that tight together. But then I realized at that moment that they have a pause. They have a different dynamics. They have a different opinions. Then it comes on me. Do I give up and do I give in to their call, which will be for me to keep silent and not talk about the Rohingya women situation? Or do I just say like, hey, sorry guys, I will be talking about this. This is injustice. This is where we stand as an organization. But if you cannot do it, if you don't accept me, I'm okay to leave. And I think it is my way of resisting, not only like silently, but resisting, speaking up about it. And even though we are facing this big system that we have to keep challenging, but then we also sometimes face this internalized system within ourselves that we have to keep challenging. To me, it's important that we as individuals remain to be firm and still on these what we believe in, and then just keep pushing. And at one point, if I cannot keep pushing them to be on that side with me, I just have to let it go. And then you ask me the question here in one of your guiding questions, why do I let it go? I let go for those who are not able to be on the same page on this principle with us or with me at the moment, because I know at one point, I do believe deep down, they will come back. They will come back. But in order for them to come back, I think it's important for us to keep firm and still. So I just wanted to share with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a few more minutes left. So I would like to give the four, well, I think it's three now, or two speakers, have a last comment, a short comment, and then
yes.
But in the context of your comment, I would like each of you
I just said, Margo, that it's over to you.
We don't understand.
Okay, it's a terrible connection and we can't understand, but anyway, we're coming close to time to stop. So, okay, so let's each panelist or the presenters, if you were to imagine a feminist future that is genuinely secure, right? Where women are secure, women are safe in all the ways that you talked about not being safe, right? What do you think are the most important core values, right, that we should be promoting as feminists involved in various kinds of movements? What do you think are the core values and principles going forward for creating genuine security. And why don't we start with Marcela? What do you think are the most important values and principles?
Thank you, gracias. Gracias, Silvia. Me fue traduciendo todo lo que ustedes pudieron exponer. Y realmente me quiero sumar a las palabras de esperanza que Margot remarcaba continuamente.
She wants to focus on hope.
Mirando la mitad del vaso lleno.
Looking at
Puedo contar de mi país y de algunos
the full
otros.
glass
Las
of
mujeres aquí
water.
podemos elegir y ser elegidas. Es un gran avance el voto femenino.
Here in Argentina, we can vote. Women can vote, and that gives us hope.
Estos encuentros
These meetings,
nos unen y nos avanzan, nos hacen empoderarnos, porque
we
es
are
la
empowered
tecnología poder encontrar
because
nuestras voces.
technology is making this possible and hear our voices. Sí.
Quizás naturalizamos como otras cosas, como se naturaliza la violencia. Quizás nosotras aquí también.
We are naturalizing, we are over-naturalizing violence in Argentina.
Que realmente uno se puede agarrar de frases positivas. Luther King decía,
we take Martin Luther King,
aun si mañana el mundo se
words.
habría de desintegrar,
Even if tomorrow the world comes apart,
yo igual plantaría mi manzano.
I would anyway plant my
Por
apple
supuesto
tree.
que comprendo a veces las ganas de retirarse.
Of course, she understands sometimes we want to give up,
nos damos fuerza para no frustrarnos.
but together we can, we have more strength.
Porque estamos comprometidas con temas álgidos, fuertes,
we
dolorosos,
are,
lo decía en mi exposición.
Okay, we are facing difficult problems, but together we can.
De sentimiento, más que de números.
This is not about numbers, but it's about feelings.
Por eso no abandonemos juntarnos, encontrarnos. Y otra frase que me viene a la cabeza.
That's why she says that we need to get together to be heard. And another phrase that she wants to mention. Sí.
Una es invisible, varias somos indestructibles. Avanti, avancemos.
She says that one is isolation and many of us together are powerful, invincible, all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcela. So your value is hope and solidarity, feminist women sticking together, working together. Ohmar, please, what are your central values, core values going forward for genuine security?
Thank you. I will echo my sister also saying on the solidarity, definitely. And I think at this point, as you already outlined very well in the concept note of all of these immense challenges in the time, especially like as much as the technology has become a powerful tool for us, but also it's become a very powerful threat also to our security. So I think we need to be able to adapt to where things are now and expand our space and solidarity by different, I would say maybe different creative means, such as like what we are doing now. But I think also strategy will be very important for us to we all look very deeper, but also to come up with the strategy that we can all, in our different places and situation and context that we will be able to apply, that we complement each other, that we can support each other. And the whole connection, and the bond and connection is, to me, is where my value and where I really would like to see and be a part of. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any other comments on what we've done? Maria Julia, one value, one belief, one principle. Did you want to add that? And Vera?
It's really very difficult to say something. I think that to be together, we need to maintain hope at any moment, and we need to inspire in women like the speakers, like you, Margo, with your great presentation, with all the women who would inspire us in going on with our job, and of course, together in the way with men.
So one thing I'm taking from what you're saying, that we have to believe in each other. We have to have faith in each other, and we have to really think about creating spaces where we can bring the men along too. They have a lot to learn as well.
Yes,
right?
Yes, of course.